morning and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited about this video because we are going to be setting up my physical TBR. Essentially, I have ordered this trolley from IKEA. So I saw that Emmy has this one. I actually ordered it in black instead of white, and I am just going to be using it as my physical TBR. I also want to add some of my other creative materials in there, things like my creative scrapbook, some highlighters, and my annotation tabs. So it's just going to be my creative trolley. So I'm excited to set that up. It just came earlier in this week, but I can actually build it today and then set it up with all of the books that I have on my physical TBR. I did do a bit of a shopping haul with my books because there were a few places that had a couple of sales, and then also I knew I wanted to make a physical TBR. So I will go over with you now all of the books that I have brought that we can add to this trolley. So first of all, I want to preface this by saying I do not buy this many books at once very often. I knew that I wanted to set up a physical TBR. I also ordered a couple of books and then realized that they were on Kindle Unlimited. So what I've tried to do is only order the physical books of either books that I'm really excited about so that I know that I'm going to want a physical version of them, or books that are not on Kindle Unlimited. I am so excited for all of these books for various reasons. So let's just get into the book haul. Firstly, we have the entire Throne of Glass collection. I loved Akatar by SJM, and so I'm excited to read another series of hers. I know that when I like a series, I like to binge the whole thing. However, I also have to be in the mood and ready to delve into a completely new world. So I'm hoping I can read this at some point this year, but this is definitely something I'm excited for. Then we have the Mistborn trilogy. Now, Brandon Sanderson, I know, is very well known for being part of the high fantasy genre. I do not read high fantasy often. When I was younger, I was a Harry Potter girly, so I only got into high fantasy things like Lord of the Rings when I was a little bit older, but I did enjoy it. So I want to try and read some high fantasy, and I know that this Mistborn trilogy is where you're supposed to start with Brandon Sanderson, so I'm also excited for these and to start reading some of his books because I think he has like 20 plus books that are all part of the same world. We've got prequels and sequels and just a lot. So I'm going to start with these and see how I find them. But that is another collection that I want to start. Next, we have a couple of books that are very high up on my TBR. Firstly, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I heard about this book last year, however, it just gives very spring vibes, so I want to read it in the next couple of months since we're in spring now. Also, I think it's more of like a light-hearted fantasy. We've got some romance. Our main character is a researcher of fairies, which just sounds so fun. And so this hasn't got as much political intrigue and stuff that I usually read when it comes to fantasy. So I'm excited to read something that is a bit more lighthearted but still enjoyable and still part of the fantasy world. So this is definitely high up on my TBR. Next, we have This Woven Kingdom. I have heard very good things about this. It's a fantasy, of course, but it's more fairy tale-esque, which I just feel is, again, perfect for spring. It's part of a series. I believe there are going to be 4 books in this series, but only 3 are out, I think. Like I said, fairy tale-esque fantasy book, a bit more lighthearted, but we've still got political intrigue and just some fun fantasy fairy tale. So I'm excited to read this book as well, very high up on my TBR. I hope I can read it, if not in March, then possibly in April. But this is something that I'm very excited to read. I've heard a lot of good things about this, and I just kind of want to get into a fairy tale-esque series. So this is definitely one that is high up on my list to read very soon. Next, we actually have another SJM book. So we have House of Earth and Blood, which is the first book in the Crescent City series. I definitely want to start this in spring or read this in spring so that I continue with the series. Hoping for a lot with an SJM book. I am expecting romance, I'm expecting fantasy, I'm expecting found family, I'm expecting a lot of fun world building and just a world that you can really immerse yourself in. That's what I find SJM does so well. This is an urban fantasy from what I know, so it's a bit different to what I usually read. I don't think I've read urban fantasy before, not recently anyway, so this might be a bit different for me to read, but I am very excited to also start this, and again, very high up on my TBR to read. Next, we have a couple of other fantasy series that I want to start reading. So we have The Ember and the Ashes. I believe this is part of a 4-part series. Again, I've heard good things. I think it's a little bit darker than the previous ones that I've just spoken about. What I know about it is there's political intrigue, there's fantasy, it's quite an immersive world, and a lot of people, I've heard good things about this. So it's definitely a series I want to start. I think I'm in a place where I just want to start a lot of series. The problem is, once I start a series that I love, I will binge the whole thing and I won't want to read anything else until I've completed the series, because a lot of these books are the start of a series. So we'll see how that goes. Next is Lightlark. I've heard a lot of good things. I believe there's like a deadly game in this, kind of like Hunger Games, so it's a little bit darker, but I am excited with this. I think there are 3 books out in this series. I don't know if it's a trilogy, as in, I don't know if the 3rd book is the final to the series, but I've heard good things about this as well, so I'm excited about that. And also, the cover is gorgeous. So, yes, another series that I want to start too. Next, I have a couple of lighter fantasy books. These are definitely ones that I want to read this year, but I think they're more so going to be kind of palette cleansers. We have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, fantasy, romance. I don't think there's much political intrigue and things, so it's a bit of a lighter fantasy book, but I definitely want to read this as well. And I just think it will be a sweet romance from what I've heard. So that's what I'm expecting from here. We also have Legends and Lattes. Now, I love fantasy books, the fantasy genre in general, but I have not read a cozy fantasy before. So this is going to be the first cozy fantasy that I read. I believe there is a second book in this series. I think they're interconnected standalones, but I haven't bought the second one because I want to see if I actually like cozy fantasy in the first place. But again, I think this would be more of a palette cleanser and just something a bit lighter that I can read in between fantasy series, because fantasy books, you really just get immersed into the whole world and the political intrigue and the wars and everything that's going on. So it's nicer to have something that is a bit more lighter to deal with. But this is also on my TBR. Next, we have a couple of books that are just outside of my genre. So like I said, I read fantasy mostly, and I want to try to read some books that are not specifically fantasy books. So first of all, I have Emily Henry. I've not read any Emily Henry books. I know. But I wanted to read these in summer. So this is something that I'll probably read later in the year. So we've got Beach Read and Book Lovers. From what I've heard, you're either a beach read girl or a book lovers girl, so I guess we'll find out which one I am. But these are definitely not fantasy books, these are more so romance, and I've heard a lot of good things about Emily Henry, so I'm excited to read some of her books and just get into these. And then lastly, we have Fable. Leading on from trying to read things that are outside of my normal genre, this is a dark academia. I have not read any dark academia books, but I've heard very good things about this one. So I do want to read this as well, as not only just something different to the genres that I usually read, but also because I've heard such good things and that it's a very good book. And I think I might like dark academia books as well. So this will kind of show me if that is a genre that I want to get more into. Those are all of the books. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we have 21 books on my physical TBR, which is quite a lot, but I am so excited. Like, looking at all of these books, I'm so excited. I have no idea where I'm going to start, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Next, let's set up the trolley. And I also want to set up a TBR jar because, like I said, I'm excited about all of these books. So I don't know how I'm going to choose which one to read, which is why I think a TBR jar will be quite fun. And yeah, so let's go do that now. I got the smaller size trolley so that it would fit underneath my existing shelving. However, this meant that I needed to put the books in horizontally rather than vertically, which wasn't my initial idea, but it still worked all the same. This resulted in essentially having all of my SJM books on the bottom shelf, my Mistborn trilogy at the top, and the rest of the books in the middle. This is also going to help with ensuring that I don't buy too many unread books too often and just keep it to as many that can fit into this particular trolley. I also managed to add in some of my other creative materials, such as my creative scrapbook, my sketchbook, a pencil case, and also the current book that I am rereading and annotating. That is everything set up and ready to use. So that is everything set up. I'm really looking forward to using all of these and to read these books over the next few weeks and months. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!